Hello, and welcome to the first episode of one of these campaign journals that I'm going to do for Book 3 of the Ilderon Tales. Book 3 is Nia, Purpose, which is like the whole overarching theme of like all of the D&D stories that we're telling on this channel. So, if you don't know who I am, my name is Brandon Kennedy. I am the dungeon master and like the primary video producer for this channel. Hopefully you do know me if you're watching this. What we do on this channel is this channel's all about stories and storytelling. One of the biggest like content that I produce here is we have a set of ongoing Dungeons and Dragons campaigns. They are all happening in the same campaign setting called the same world. It's called Ilderon, and all of them are happening at the same time in the campaign setting's history, but the groups are kind of in 3 different areas of the world, and things that they might do might ripple over and cascade into other groups' campaigns and other groups' stories. So it's kind of a really interactive experience between me and about 21 other players, and each group has about 7 players in it. So everything is live storytelling, everything's improv, and the story can go anywhere. As such, I wanted to kind of recap each episode and like the story of where it's going, so whenever you tune in to watch that, you kind of know like, okay, what's going on in the next one. So recently, this past week and then the week before last, we had episode 1 of each of the 3 new groups. And it was such a fantastic launch to this campaign. So the theme of the campaign and that we're going with is purpose, and it's kind of like exploring purpose through many different facets. If you are a longtime subscriber of the channel, or you've watched like a lot of content on here, having a foundation of coming into the new stories really helps really helps like, okay, wait, what's going on? But also, I've really tried to write these stories and present them in a way that when we start them, that even if you're not familiar with Ilderon, like you'll be able to pick up of like what's going on and what's interesting. But hopefully those videos will add a little bit more foundation to that. So I think what I'll do is I'll go just gladiators, scholars, nobles, since that's the order the campaigns have started in, and just kind of explain what's happened in each one's storyline. So the gladiators is our first group, and if you see, I've got like this rotating map here of Ilderon, and I probably should have like prepared something else here. If you see like this area right here, this continent of Rion, dotted through these islands, straight up here through Ililnagai and then to Alyan, there are a bunch of arenas where people like to compete and kind of and go against some of like the most fabled warriors inside of Ilderon. Between the Tidegate, Rion, and Mentori, they are Mentori is the city here at the top of Alyan, but you can't see it in this map. But actually, I could zoom in a little bit more, but I don't know, might get confusing. Anyways, there's a bunch of arenas in that coastal area up into the northern forest, and so the gladiators are a group that is fighting through each of those arenas individually and getting a commendation to compete in the last and final one. The best way to think about this is like a league that they're entering, and they are trying to get to the playoffs or the Super Bowl of the league. So it's a combat-focused campaign, and it is great. So all of these like fresh characters, like young, new faces to Ilderon, have all stepped off of the boat into this port city, this coastal trading hub of Riofir. is the name of the city. And in Rio Fear is where the first of these arenas happen. And Rio Fear is kind of like almost a New York of sorts of a city. And immediately, as all of these fresh-faced contenders get off the boat, there's somebody there waiting to take advantage of, these young and gullible aspirants who are seeking to enter like this arena. And so the gladiators, their campaign starts with each of them walking off the boat. They're angry, they're brutish, they're ready to get to the arena and get fighting. They're pushing past people. And then the first guy they encounter is this like charismatic, charming guy who's just like, you guys know the arena entry is 1,000 gold to get into the arena. And there's a beggar there who's one of the party members who's been there sitting at that spot begging, and he's got a blindfold over his eyes and a cane and a begging pot that he's just sitting there tapping. And so this other person, this charming individual who's like trying to take advantage of these people who just got off the boat, is telling them about how to enter the arena, which he's not wrong. There's 1,000 gold sponsorship that's required to get into the arena, and none of these characters have 1,000 gold. Like at most, maybe one of them might have like 10 or 12 gold. And so other people who are on the boat too, who are aspirants who came to the arena for the same, or came to the city for the same reason, they're gathered around this guy, and he's like, all right, so I'm looking for new fighters for the arena. So the first one to give me, first 3 people to volunteer, I'll pay your sponsorship. And, the party shoves past, like, the players all shove past, like, these other people who have gathered to volunteer. As soon as they start volunteering, this guy's jingling this huge bag of what people think is money. At which point, the character who had been there begging for several days realized, he's like, wait, I know this guy's voice. Didn't you come here the other day and enlist new aspirants fresh off the boat too? What happened to them? And he's like, they died, as what's common in the arena, which the other characters around knew that this very first arena does not fight to the death. It's uncommon for people to die here. And the party kind of started putting it together like, wait a second, this guy's gonna walk us into an alley and swindle us. At which point this guy sees about 12 people who just got off this boat that he's trying to take advantage of. And, they realize, wait, we're being hoodwinked here. And he just takes off running. And the party steals his bag of coins. And it turns out to be a bag of spoons and metal chunks and a couple copper coins and a couple silver coins, which is just stuffed to look full. And they toss it right into the ocean. It's like, all right, let's go to the arena. And so they make their way down one of the most populated roads in the city, and there's just like all of this life and all of these animals and trade and things happening around them, and people on elevated platforms and stuff, like yelling towards the crowds, putting on shows and stuff. Like Real Fear is really like this just grand place, just bustling with life. And there's this bard performing, and he is a College of the Swords bard, and he's there attracting a crowd and saying he will duel anyone, and he is undefeated. He's Skizon the Undefeated. Has yet to be defeated, and the crowd is gathered around him, placing bets on people who he's singing and he's insulting the passerbys as they walk by to get them to come in, and almost in like a kind of a carny fashion of like, come on, fight me. And so he lures one of the party members in to fight him, which, let me grab that party member's name. It is the half-orc druid Brewbark, who decides to fight this guy. And so once he is fighting him, this bard is just like dancing around him and says, okay, first one to draw blood first one to draw blood wins, and everybody like places their bets. And the bard whispers into his ears, just like, all right, if you put on a good show, I'll share the coin with you. And so they're, the druid shapeshifts into a bear, and starts just viciously trying to maul this bard as he's like dancing around and insulting him of like, oh, you wish you could have hit me with that one. And at one point, the druid lands one hit on the bard and does like would have dealt like 9 damage, but the bard is completely unfazed by it, unhurt. Like he's got some sort of immunity to this damage. And so then like once the dust settles and the paw is there, the bard slips his like sword up like as if he had blocked the hit, and everybody's like, wait, what happened? And then the bard then attacks the druid, and Brewbark, realizing he can't hurt this bard, dramatically faints as the bard like hits him with the sword, and he's like, aha, I have won the duel. And the bard shares 7 gold with him. So the party is just kind of like confused as to like what's going on. And so another person steps forward and it's like, I'm taking this guy on. And they go ham attacking this guy. They like swing wildly. It's the barbarian Regus, halfling barbarian, swings wildly, attacking this guy just in every direction, missing, and the bard is just dancing around like, ooh, you can't hit me. And then he criticals and lands a hit on the bard. And again, the bard is unfazed by this. And then he takes out his rapier and then, shoves it through the shoulder of the barbarian. And the party is like, what is going on at this point? And one of the other characters starts figuring out the blind beggar who was following them had, heard stories of monsters before with immunity to certain types of damage. And it starts clicking like, maybe this is one of those monsters. Like maybe this is a lycanthrope, because werewolves can only be hurt with silver. And it just so happens that hidden away in his cane is a silver rapier. And so the blind beggar like raises his hand and it's like, I'll fight you next. And everybody who's been betting on, like the members of the party who are just like, oh, these guys look kind of competent. Like, oh, look, it's a strong half-orc. Of course he'll be able to try and beat this guy. Everybody sees the blind beggar come up and it's like, yeah, all money is on Skiazin the Undefeated. And so the guy is just like, oh, he's blind. So the bard's like, oh, he's blind. It's not fair to attack him outright. I'll only use one hand. And so he starts dancing around the blind beggar. And of course, the blind beggar is a experienced fighter. And his first hit, he critically strikes, whipping his rapier out of his cane and stabbing it through the lycanthrope, the werewolf, and it's a silvered rapier, so it hurts him and it scratches him and it draws blood. And in one round, he wins the fight. And everybody's just like shocked of like, oh, wow. Well, we just lost all that money. And the party gets paid out a couple, nice little handful of gold coins, and then they all look towards Zeeth, the blind beggar, and they're like, so? And he's like, you know what? Let's talk about this. I'll treat you all to a lunch over by the arena. And they go to a food vendor outside the arena. Meanwhile, another party member had already diverted off to go and try and get entry into the arena. And so they were talking to one of the people who manages the contestants and found out that the person who had been trying to hoodwink them was actually right. There's 1,000 gold entry, and that they would have to come up with the 1,000 gold or find a sponsor. And they the person gave them a hint of just a clue of like, oh, there is this old elf in town who's been looking for desperate arena contenders to sponsor. And then they, was like, whoa, okay, why hasn't he found one? It's like his deal is really weird. Like, he only sponsors people if they accept this really weird deal, so he's looking for pretty desperate people. And the party members are just like, let's go find him. And so as they're like talking at the alcove, the vendor who was selling food, the party meets back up. And, they stumble onto this, the old elf. His name is Grimstone Heartringer. And he's just this weird, awkward fella who's seen a lot. And he's really, and elves in Ilderon don't die of old age. If they don't get stabbed through the chest, they can pretty much live forever. They're kind of like some species of like crustaceans that they like. Old age isn't what kills them. Like, their body just keeps regenerating. So he is pretty terrified of dying, but he knows someday he is. And he wants to come to accept that. And he wants to come to see other people accept that and how they accept that so that he can learn from it. And so he offers to sponsor the party on one condition. If they win, he'll give them 10% of the winnings. And, obviously he's made gold, and he'll go and try and find more people to sponsor who will accept his deal. But if they lose, the condition is that he is allowed to kill them with his bare hands and watch the final moments where the life fades out of their eyes. Like, he wants to strangle, like, one of the party members. And the party thinks about it, and they're like, yep, that's fine. That's a great deal. We'll take this. And then they go on about their business. And that's where that session ends. So that's the gladiators. So next I'll talk about the scholars. Now that I'm thinking, it might have been easier to do this as like 3 separate videos, so it's not like a huge runtime. So the scholars, their story started over in this island right here of Coven. And it is the home of an organization called the Silver Sigil, which is a bunch of magical scholars who are working towards furthering the world's understanding of magic. And something crazy has happened in this region. Like, if you see, like, the rest of the world, like, how spread out the nations are, like, look at all that room that Alyan and Morzia, Lunagai, and Artaserai have, and then, Heimsdale and the Darken Empire. But if you scroll in here into this area called the Clutch, you see there's, like, 4 major civilizations here just squeezed in right next to each other. And this area experiences a lot of chaos because like, all of these cultures clash in such a small space, and it's really hard for any law and order to function there. So it's kind of like there is a thin piece the region has of, it's kind of like an unspoken agreement amongst each other, like a Mexican standoff of like, nobody shoots because everybody could die if one person takes that shot. And everybody has a gun pointed at each other in this region. And so what has happened is there's this city right here, Kraylor's Fist. It's got a new leader, and Kraylor's Fist is a pretty big city-state in this region. And she has started colonizing other regions of, or other parts of the region. And so this has concerned the organization known as the Silver Sigil, because what they need is for every nation to work together, and if every nation is peaceful, then they can contribute their resources towards furthering the understanding of arcane magic. If every nation is, at war and fighting each other, the best minds are dying, are dying in these wars the best minds that could have come up with some of the coolest spells, the greatest, arcane solutions are dying from war. So they want to prevent things like that, to preserve, life, so life can then continue to evolve and develop. And so they recognize the threat. This lady who has the signs of like a Hitler type of dictator, of like how Hitler kept making moves very early and Europe was just trying to appease him and appease him and appease him, and then he just invaded Poland out of nowhere. Like, they recognize, like, oh, that's about to happen. Like, this lady has all of the signs of a dictator, so we need to stop her. And they have called together their leadership to vote on the issue of like saying like, this is a problem and she needs to be undermined. And 3 different people have 3 different plans on how to do it. And so there's the current leader of the Silver Sigil, which is a man named Andis Wetchard. There's the senator of Ililnagai, the Silver Senator of Ililnagai, the representative of the Silver Sigil for that country. Her name is Storina Theolite. And then there's the senator of Low Lakes. His name is Eldel Kaidenklaspin. And they all propose 3 wildly different strategies towards the council floor on how to handle this issue. And it goes to a vote. And because there are only 9 senators there to vote, each one ends up getting 3 votes from the elected council. And so it goes to a full chamber vote where every member of the organization who's in attendance gets a vote. And so the party has an opportunity to vote on which leader they want to lead their organization to handle this rising dictator. And they discuss it amongst themselves briefly before, they finally vote for Andis Wetchard. And Nyoka, the lizard folk who's there, accidentally votes for Andis. He says, like, who is Andis? And the vote is being taken verbally and magically by saying the name. And so when he says, who is Andis? That's his vote. Andis. And Andis ends up winning. And so the party then gets assigned their first job, which relates to this dictator. She's made a colony over in this region right over here, if you look in the center of the screen, and you can just see how far away that is from Kraylor's Fist. And right where this river is here, this one right here, she has started mining out something from that small little nowhere town in excess. And she's even building a harbor there. Like, they didn't have a harbor, they just had a quay, like a little area where ships could like come in, and or where like ships could like still be in the bay, and like small little rowboats could come up on shore. So she's building a big harbor there so she can dock her ships, and she's been exporting things from this town, and the Silver Sigil wants to know why that's important to her. So the party's first mission is to go to that town, talk to the harbor master, and, well, not talk to the harbor master, but obtain the harbor master's manifest and see what he's exporting out of his harbor, and what the rising dictator, her name is Erin, her last name escapes me, but what she is getting from this town. And they are tasked with getting this however they want. So they go to and they talk about it. They finally decide that the only way to do this is just, to move forward. And they're just forming a plan as they go along. And so they are teleported into they are teleported by the Silver Sigil into the outskirts of the city. And it is nighttime. And so they go looking for lodging. They go looking for lodging and they'll start their investigation in the morning. And as they're like looking for lodging, they realize how incredibly small this city is. The city is like maybe a collection of 9 houses and some mines up in the hills of the waterfall. Like, and then there's a barracks that's been built out of wood temporarily for the Heimsdale military that's stationed inside of the town. And as they teleport into the town, they can see down in the bay there are 3 warships, like 3 full-size, like large seafaring vessels there, and ever so often there's like a little rowboat with like a torchlight rowing across the bay to these warships, and then they see the harbor being built on the southern part of the town. And so this is really a tiny town for this much investment. So there's no inn in this town either, because it's like that small. But they find a town member who is renting out space in her house, of a person who lives here, to all of the people that keep coming in and out of the house, or keep coming in and out of the village. And there are currently 3 merchants there who have just rented space to, basically have a place to sleep for the night. And so among these 3 merchants are 2 slavers and a lumberer. And the slavers are giving the party like information of just like, yeah, like they wanted orders I couldn't fill. Like she asked me to, like one lady was hired to bring 10 slaves in. Another guy was hired to bring in 6, and, respectively, they could only get like 3 and 4. But, they're going to go back and get more and come back, and because it's like so profitable, because like this region keeps, or rather this town, the dictator who's established like the colony here, is buying slaves to go into the mines and mine stuff and come out. So they're like really curious like what she's mining, but also they really do not like these slavers, as 2 of the members of the party were formerly slaves. So they don't even want to share the same lodging with, people that would sell other people. And they decide to start their investigation that night. They go down to the harbor master's warehouse, and they happen to catch him just as he's locking up shop. And through some clever negotiation and lies, because that's what the Silver Sigil does, is they disguise themselves. They're like they're secret magical agents. They get inside of his warehouse and they, bring him along of like, hey, we're with the Heimsdale military and we need to check your manifest. And then finally he's just like, I don't think I've seen you guys before, and I don't feel comfortable doing this. At which point the party's like, you caught us. This was a security check. We are with the Heimsdale military. Good job following protocol and not showing us the manifest. And he's like, oh, I knew there was something. Okay. And like, as, he's like relaxing, the party casts a spell on him and stuns him. And then they put one guard to sleep. Then they put him to sleep. And they start looking through the warehouse. And they lead him into his office to get the manifest. And then things start going south very quick once the magic fades and he realizes he's been charmed. The harbor master's been charmed, and he screams for help, at which point one of the party members threatens him, and he's like, okay, I'm done screaming. But there was another guard outside who hears the scream and comes charging in. So he charges in. Then the other guard who they tied up, like they didn't do a good job of it, and he breaks free of his bindings. And he pulls out a dagger and he's like, oh, we gotta, like they're ready to save like the harbor master and their operation, because these guards both work for the Kraylor's Fist, shield hand. That's her name, the dictator's position, the shield hand. And so they're ready to, die for this cause. And one guard runs in and stabs a party member with a spear, and the other one takes a dagger out and starts trading blows with the lizard folk Nyoka, before the party is able to eventually get each of these guards down. But it costs a lot, as it, the guard almost kills 2 party members, and then, Nyoka, Lex and the other, and Kayeth are able to dispatch the other guard without too much issue. So once they have the guards dealt with, the other character whose name, let me real quick look at that. The other character whose name is Azure, that's who it is, escorts the harbor master into his office and retrieves the manifest before he tells magically commands the harbor master to go to sleep. And with the manifest in hand, he starts heading out with the party so they can get out of this like fiasco of a situation. And Nyoka looks onto one of the shipping containers that's in this warehouse to try and see like what's being shipped out of here, even though they have the manifest. And he sees all of these jagged, cloudy, ori veins of stone, and the party's able to put together there's huge chunks of opal inside of these stones. And like with all the shipping containers in here, the object that's being shipped out of this place en masse is opal. There is lots of opal being mined from the waterfall, and then it's being shipped out and out of the harbor and to the warships and then back to the city of Kraylor's Fist. So that's what they discovered in their first session, is what she wants with this opal, or what she's doing with it, or how it plays into like any greater plans they're unaware of, but they did complete their first mission. All right, so finally, this past Saturday we had the Scholars, which was such a great campaign. Or not the Scholars, the Nobles, which was such a great campaign. The Nobles, this is like everything I've like wanted out of storytelling for like a story inside of Ilderon. So their campaign takes place in the nation of Arter Sarai. If you've watched any content on the channel, you should be pretty much familiar with this nation. It is one of the oldest nations inside of Ilderon. It's the oldest human nation. And it's got a lot of like history and tradition. And so one of the things that resulted out of the other stories that we've told in this world in the previous campaigns is that the leader of that country was pregnant 16 years ago. Because all of these stories have started 16 years after all of the previous stories that we told. She was pregnant and her womb got cursed, cursing her child. That curse happened, or that curse was solved by, by the characters and the great heroes of the past 16 years ago. They didn't relent until, the issue was taken care of. But there's still a lot of rumors circulating inside of the city, inside of the country, that the magnate, that, her child's a demon spawn, that, she consorts with demons and devils, and the country is kind of like inching towards that inciting a rebellion type phase. So the magnate, the leader of the country, has decided to throw a 16th birthday party for her daughter and present her formally to the nobles of the country to say, like, look, here's my daughter. She's completely fine. She's just a normal human girl. And, all of this, like, all of these talks and rumors about her are just, like, unfounded. And so each party member is of a noble rank that got an invitation to this party and to be a part of this celebration of the princess's 16th birthday party. So as each one's being introduced, more NPCs are like, more people are like filing into this feast hall and into the celebration for the night. And I could go through and say like each person of like what happens, but we've got a party of nobles, and so when they are led and sat at their table of like the table they're assigned to for the night, the head diviner, which is kind of like the head mage of the castle, or the archmage of the castle, comes by with her apprentice, and she sits her apprentice at the table, and tells the apprentice, like, you are not to say anything about what we do in our office. Don't talk to anyone. Don't leave this spot. Your job is to sit and scan the crowd. And the apprentice nods and sits down. And then the head diviner sees a person that she was good friends with, Lord Marrow Esterai, one of the fathers of the party. One of the fathers of one of the party members who had accompanied his son there, and the son is one of the player characters. And so the head diviner, turns to Marrow and it's like, oh, hey, it's great that you're here. We didn't know you would be coming. Let me take you off to the side and talk to you about some things. And so, Marrow goes off and leaves. Among the players in the party, there's Lumilia, who is the daughter of, she's the daughter of a sage of a mountain town in the north, but she's not really the daughter. The sage lost his daughter when he was younger, and he lost his daughter. She died at birth, and he prayed to the gods for a child, and then Lumilia appeared, manifested out of an earth fire. She's a fire spawn, and he has adopted her as his daughter and has raised her to be a sage. And she is representing his family at this event. Then there's Claw Esterai, who is the son of Marrow Esterai. He is the son of a half-lycan and a werewolf. So he himself is half-lycan because he just didn't get the full genes of that. And werewolves aren't wholly liked inside of Artaserai, even though there are a good number of them. Then we have Stradora. She is essentially a redundant princess of Ililnagai, almost a former princess, kind of like what the British monarchy is to Ililnagai, I guess, or like Prince Harry or Meghan Markle. Whatever importance they play to the authority of the country. So Stradora is traveling around on order business. And when she comes to the party, she is there accompanying a order of healing clerics who were invited to the country to cure a very bad magical disease that outbroke in a mountain town to the north. And as the order captain and Stradora is just there experimenting if this is the type of work she wants to do with the order, with her life. And as the order captain and Stradora are walking into the party, someone breaks free from the crowd and runs towards them and is just like, "You guys saved me. Like, I was losing my mind. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what was going on. And the frostblight was also consuming me. And you came to my village and you healed me. And you honestly don't know what you've done for me. I will give you anything. I owe you anything, any favor." And the order captain looks at Stradora and is like, "Look, this is why we do this work. For people like her. For, this moment is why we do this. I'm going to go get her an inn room. I'm going to go, because, she looks like this dirty beggar. She's like, I'm going to go get her an inn room. You go in and you represent us tonight, all right?" And so the order captain leaves with the woman, and Stradora goes in and parties, and it's great. Then we have Alexander Vega, who's the son of another former player in the group, and he is a knight, but his mom's also a member of the Kalkin. Then we have Anderson Rayleigh, who is a noble who belongs to a family of tailors. And we have Kenneth Albarera. He is the son of a councilwoman. And I'm thinking if that is everybody. We got Kenneth, Claw, Anderson, Alexander, Lumilia, Stradora. Yes. All right. And so the party's going on, and as it's happening, they're kind of like talking with this apprentice about what they think the princess is going to be like, what they're expecting from this party. They're asking the apprentice questions, they're revealing things about themselves. The party is all talking about their tragic, or some of their tragic families, as Lumilia, is a part of a love family, but she doesn't technically have any blood parents because she's manifested from the earth fire. And the apprentice tells her, like, oh yeah, I know that. My dad left me when I was young. It's super tragic. And it kind of gets just like really awkward. We're just like, oh, wow, this apprentice has no social skills. And so as the party goes on, they meet a character named Lord Glacius Niatin, who is currently putting together an alliance of former nobles who were once sworn to a bigger noble house, but that noble house has since fallen into disrepair. It's broken up, and the person who led it has disappeared. So they're trying to get the powerhouse of all of these different nobles that had pledged allegiance to that house to pledge allegiance to this guy. And the throne has been supporting this family. The magnate has been supporting Lord Niatin to consolidate the power of this noble house as the best candidate out of everybody trying to do it, and to be an ally of the throne. And so he comes over to the party and he introduces himself and tries to get some of the party members' families to pledge himself to his house, as it's been what he's working towards. And of course the party member's like, okay. So later, gifts are exchanged with the princess as the magnate and the princess walk into the celebration, the feast hall, and sit at their table, and everybody starts lining up to give them gifts and words of thanks and appreciation. And as they're doing this, the princess's responses are like really robotic and really rehearsed, like, thank you, I'll treasure this gift always. Oh, thank you for this dress, I'll wear it as soon as I can. Oh, thank you for this necklace, every time I wear it I'll think of you. Oh, and it's just like this really like, okay. And so the party then sits down, and there's entertainment that's been hired, and it's this illusionist who is juggling fire and shooting jets of fire at these batons that he's juggling, and he's putting out the fire, and there's no light in the room except for the flames on the torches that he's like juggling. And each time all three of the torches are in the air and they come back down, he's cast a different illusion on himself to look like a different person juggling them. He throws it up and then catches it, and he's someone else. And he finishes his performance. He's like, thanks, I'll be here all night. And everybody's like, that was nice. At which point the party then goes and consults him, because the apprentice at the table is really interested in illusion magic, but she's not allowed to get up and go talk to anybody because she's been commanded by her superior to stay here and sit. And so the party goes and talks to the illusionist and like, hey, come talk to us. And he's just like so excited. People are walking up and talking to him. He's like, hey, I'll sign an autograph. It's like, we don't want your autograph, until he gets back to the party and like, we want your autograph. When he basically gives the party a clue as to how he's casting spells so quickly. And after which, the party is a bunch of really socially awkward teens. And he's just like, all right, I'll see you guys later. And he pieces out. And then the people in the room start lining up again to give more gifts to the princess. And Lord Niatin, the one who's putting together the alliance, calls everybody together and is just like, all right, hear ye, I've got something to say. And the magnate and him start joking back and forth, like, come on, get on with it. This isn't, a huge presentation. This isn't a place for you to recruit more people to your cause. We're here for a specific purpose, to present my daughter, to make sure, everybody knows she's just like a normal girl. Come on, dude, let's, get on with it. And he gives this big speech of just like how Ardor Sarai was once this nation of heroes, and, Ardor led the world in honor. But recently, Ardor has given away a large portion of their territory to a demon lord, to basically appease the demon lord of look, don't go killing peasants, don't go rampaging the countryside, you can't form a cult, and if you do that, you can have these lands and nobody will bother you. And then Ardor also gave away a forest to a bunch of werewolves of just of like making agreements with them of just like, all right, if this is your forest, nobody will go into it, you don't kill anybody outside of it, just, stay here. And then all of that, coupled with the rumor that the princess is a demon spawn, has left Ardor in a very strange place in the world. And this is what Lord Niatin's speech is building towards. And then he looks at the princess and he's like, but with you, Princess, I see the honor and the opportunity to return Ardor to the age of heroes, to being the light that leads the world. And he takes out a spear and stabs her through the heart. And then, it's like such a dramatic moment. And he wrenches it, and, she dies, and it's a Valpyr spear. So once you kill somebody with a Valpyr weapon in Ilderon, it's a type of metal that scars the soul. That person can't ever be revived. And the illusion that is on her fades. Her hair turns brown, and the party rushes towards her. Guards rush to seize Lord Niatin, and they pick up, the princess's body, and it's actually the apprentice's body who has been sitting at the table the whole time. At which point, the head mage, the head diviner, stands up, walks over to the table where the party's been sitting with the apprentice, grabs her hand and says, your safety is the most important thing. We have to leave right now. And pulls the apprentice out of there. But it's so confusing because the apprentice's body is also on the table. At which point the party starts putting together, wait, the princess was magically disguised at our table, and the apprentice was a stand-in body double for the princess, and she was the one who got stabbed. And so the magnate then beheads Lord Niatin in front of everyone, in front of all of these guests. Like, guards pull him down to his knees. She gives him his last words, and his last words, he looks at his son and he says, sometimes our moment comes before we're ready. And then she cuts off his head, knowing that his son is now in charge of his house and in charge of all of these nobles that he's corralled, and is the one who's going to handle this spark his father just set off of, he attacked the princess in the front of everybody, making this huge scene and this huge show of like, we will not, bow to this. And so she calls the son forward and then tells him, swear undying loyalty to the throne right now, or you join your dad. And the party's like, whoa, 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 whoa. And they step in and they talk, and they're just like, don't kill him. And the kid's just like crying of just like, I didn't know he was gonna do this. I'll do anything. Please don't cut off my head. And eventually the magnate decides, like, if he was so bold to attack and kill a child, the princess, in front of everyone here, he wasn't going on a rumor that she might be, cursed, or she might be like a demon spawn. He was acting on information that he was given. Like, that could be the only thing that explains somebody being willing to be in this situation and die for this. And so she tells one of the character's parents, Lord Meroesterai, she's like, you take the heir, the kid Niatin, go back to his family's estates and find out who gave Glacius Niatin that information. Like, Lord Esterai, I trust you to investigate this. And he nods and he grabs the kid and it's like, all right, let's go. And the kid just keeps crying the whole time. Miro's like this really gruff figure, so it's really funny. At which point the magnate tells everybody, party's over, leave for the night. Leave your children here. I want to have a word with them, because all of the party members are children essentially. They're all between 14 and 20, like young 20s, and so she formally apologizes to them of like, look, I didn't know your parents were going to bring you tonight. When I sent out invitations for the head of household and +1, I was expecting the head and their wives or husbands to come. I'm really sorry you had to see this and you had to see me behead that person, but that was the message I wanted to send to your parents, that I will not tolerate dissent and I will not tolerate this, gesturing to like the dead body. I'm really sorry that I ruined this party for you. As such, I want to make it up to you. And for the children tomorrow, I will throw a special feast in the morning. Come back. And it will be an actual jolly celebration. And, the party's like, okay. And they just kind of like walk out of the room. And so their parents have all been escorted out of the castle already. And as they're walking out, they pass through a hallway and there's the performer, Thacedanius Wonderspoon. And he's always introduced himself as the amazing Thacedanius Wonderspoon. And he whistles to the kids and he's just like, hey, you guys want to make some gold? And they're like, we probably shouldn't be talking to you. He's like, it's really weird that dude would just like attack the princess out of nowhere. I smell something interesting going on. I want to figure out what it is. How about I pay you guys to escort me to Somar Villa, and I want to have a talk with his family. And they're just like, we probably shouldn't be talking to you. And he introduces himself as, like, oh, I'm Thacedanius Wonderspoon. And one of the party members picks up on it of, like, he didn't say, I'm the amazing Thacedanius Wonderspoon. And they're like, wait, this isn't actually him. And they put it together that this is somebody disguised as him. And then they start hearing the shuffling of armor and the coming of knights like down the hallway. And then they put it together of like, wait a second, is this the princess? And they're not really sure. And they're like, all right, dude, we can go. And he's just like, okay, it's very important we don't tell anyone where I'm going or that you're even with me. And then we just go as quickly as possible. And then they definitely know, like, oh, this is the princess. Like, she wants to find out why this family would attack her because she doesn't know. She's sheltered. She's been cut off from the world and she doesn't know what's going on outside of the castle. And it's befuddling to her that somebody would meet her and then try and stab her through the chest. So it's clearly a misunderstanding in her mind. And if a war is about to be started over, a misunderstanding, she can sort that out. And so the party starts like walking with her outside of the castle, and she lets them know like, oh, we can only travel for 4 hours a day. Then we have to rest for the other amount of time. And then one of the party members gets stopped by their mom. They, tell them like, oh, we're going here and don't mind, don't worry about us. And so they get all onto a carriage heading south to Somar Villa. And they have smuggled the princess out of the castle. She is disguised as Thacedanius Wonderspoon. At which point, in the back of the carriage that they're in, she sits down and she's like, I have something to tell you. I'm not Thacedanius Wonderspoon. And before she can drop the illusion, everybody's like, yeah, we know you're the princess. And she's like, oh, okay. And then she casts a new illusion on herself. Then the party kind of talks back and forth with her and kind of realizes, like, why does she want to go here? What's, going through her mind? God, they're in huge danger. And she informs them of, like, oh, it's zero danger. I literally can't be tracked. Nobody can divine on me. And she reveals a necklace that she's wearing that magically protects her from divination spells. So once she disappears, nobody can know where she is. And it's like, she says her mother made sure that nobody could ever, scry or divine on her. And so the party continues to talk, and she reveals that she brought the gifts with her that the party had given the Princess Doppelganger, as she was expecting to sell the gifts for money on the road. And then one of the other party members feels somebody scrying on them, and they're just like, this is weird, and the caravan stops. Once the caravan stops, the party gets out and sees that all of the attendants have put to sleep, and there's a cloaked mage sitting on the road in front of the caravan calling out to them, and it's the head diviner from the castle, Reyna Surreal Renalpaw. And she says, I know the princess is in there, bring her out. And the two party members come out instead of the princess, Stradora and Alexander. And she looks and she's like, you guys are here? I'm really disappointed that you guys would be a part of this. And Stradora's just like, how did you not know we're here? You scryed on us. And she's like, no, I scryed on the princess's objects. She grabbed the gifts. I can't scry on her, but I can scry on those. Like, don't be stupid. And then Stradora's like, wait, who scryed on me then? And then teleporting in front of Stradora is the baker who Stradora met at the start of the session, who appears to be a very powerful magic user. And she looks at Stradora and says, Wensley was worried about you, that you didn't come home, and had me look for you. And it's like, makes enough sense. And then Corwind, that's the lady's name, looks over at Reyna and it's like, wait, I know your face. You knew I was in that mountain village, and you left me there to die. You are not a good person. And Corwin then looks at the party and is like, you are not going to, go with her. Like, I'm going to get you guys out of this situation. As soon as you're free, get on the carriage, whip the horses, and go. And she turns back to Reyna, and Reyna's just like, you don't know what you're talking about. And Corwin tries to dispel the spell, and Reyna counterspells her. And then the spell is only going to last for a minute, like sleep's a very short spell. And then the horses, start waking up, at which point, the party jumps on the wagon and whips them, and the horses start shooting by. And Reyna tries casting a spell again to stop the party from leaving with the princess, and Corwin then counterspells her spell. And then Corwin tells her, or Reyna looks back at Corwin and is like, I don't even know who you are. And the party just whips these horses riding into the night, leaving these two archmages to duel each other. That's where that session ends off at. So it's going to be like so much fun picking up each and every one of these stories. I hope you enjoyed episode 1 of the campaign journal, and I hope you tune in to the next couple sessions. I've been Brandon. Thank you for listening to me for an hour. Have a great day. Bye.